Day 19 in America, and I was standing at my job with the kind of smile you wear when you are trying very hard to look like a responsible adult, even though inside you still feel like a confused guest in someone else's country. I had only been in this new city for a short time, and everything still felt slightly unfamiliar. The roads, the food, the fast conversations, the way everyone expected confidence even when you had none. My job wasn't glamorous. It was one of those basic retail jobs that looks easy from the outside. Clean counter, bright lights, polite greetings, simple transactions. Honest work. The kind of job people think anyone can do until they actually have to do it for 8 hours straight while strangers test the limits of human patience. That morning I had walked in telling myself I was getting better at this. I knew where things were. I could handle the register without panicking, and I had almost mastered the American style of smiling while being mildly stressed. My coworker Chloe was already there, moving around like she had unlocked some secret survival mode. She handed me my apron, looked at me like a coach before a dangerous match, and said, "Remember, smile, breathe, and don't argue with people who have coupons." I laughed because I thought she was joking. "Coupons are dangerous?" I asked. She gave me the kind of look only experienced employees can give and said, "Coupons are emotional." And honestly, that was my first warning that in America, customer service is not really about selling things. It is about managing feelings, expectations, confusion, and occasionally, chaos. A little while later, the door opened, and in walked a man who looked completely normal. Middle-aged, neatly dressed, polite face, calm energy. The kind of customer you look at and think this should be easy. His name, as I would soon learn, was Mr. Jenkins. He stepped up to the counter, placed both hands down gently, and said, "Hi there. I need to return this." Simple enough. I smiled and said, "Of course, sir. Do you have the receipt?" He said, "No, still fine." I kept smiling. "No problem. Do you have the card you used?" He said, "No, okay. Slightly less fine." I tried again. "That's all right. Do you at least have the item with you?" He looked at me with complete confidence and said, "Also no." I genuinely froze for a second. My brain stalled. It felt like my thoughts hit a wall and slid to the floor. I stared at him and asked the only question left in the universe. "So, what exactly are we returning?" And this man, without changing his expression, said, "Yes. That was it. Yes." Not an explanation. Not a product name. Not a detail. Just yes. In that moment, I wasn't helping a customer anymore. I was negotiating with the concept. It felt like he was trying to return an idea, a memory, maybe even a regret. For one wild second, I doubted myself so hard that I almost believed this was a normal conversation, and I was the weird one. Some people are so confident that they can make you question reality itself, and Mr. Jenkins was clearly one of those people. I tried to recover professionally. I asked a few more questions, hoping clarity would appear out of nowhere, and eventually he reached into his pocket, like a magician about to reveal his final trick. He pulled out a coupon and slid it across the counter toward me with the calm satisfaction of a man who believed he had just won. "This should work," he said. I picked it up and looked at it. Expired. Not recently expired. Not last month. Not even last year. It had expired in 2019. I blinked once, then twice, just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. "Sir," I said carefully, in the gentlest voice I could manage, "this coupon is expired." He nodded like he had heard me perfectly, and then said, "It's still valid in my heart." Now I smiled. I actually smiled, because I thought we had finally arrived at the joke. I thought this was the part where he laughed, I laughed, and we both moved on like civilized human beings. But he did not laugh. He just stared at me. That was when I realized he wasn't being funny. He was being serious. Deeply serious. Spiritually serious. I could feel my confidence begin to leave my body. It didn't run. It walked out slowly, disappointed. I tried to explain the policy, still polite, still calm, still holding on to the last thread of my training. But then he said the sentence every service worker hears eventually, the sentence that changes the temperature of the room, the sentence that should honestly have dramatic music behind it. I want to speak to the manager. My spine turned to ice. Somewhere inside me, an alarm started ringing. I had heard stories about this moment. I had seen it in movies, online videos, memes. But now it was happening to me on day 19 in America while I was still learning how to survive regular small talk. Luckily, Manager Kim appeared almost instantly, as if she had sensed disturbance in the atmosphere. She walked over with the calm expression of someone who had dealt with nonsense before breakfast. "How can I help?" she asked. Mr. Jenkins straightened himself and said, "Your employee is refusing my coupon." Manager Kim took the coupon, looked at it for exactly 1 second, and said, "Sir, this expired in 2019. There was a pause, and then Mr. Jenkins said, with absolute confidence, "That's discrimination." I wish I could explain the exact emotional experience of hearing that sentence in real time, because it was so outrageous that my soul almost exited my body just to avoid being associated with the moment. I looked at Chloe, hoping for some sign that this was unusual, and she leaned closer and whispered, "Don't worry. He does this every Tuesday. Every Tuesday. Like seasons. Like weather. Like this man had made arguing with retail workers part of his weekly routine. America has spring, summer, fall, winter, and apparently Mr. Jenkins. What shocked me most was how calm Manager Kim stayed. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't say what all of us were thinking. She simply repeated the policy, gently but firmly, and stood there like a professional wall against nonsense. Eventually, after enough complaining, sighing, and wounded pride, Mr. Jenkins took his expired coupon, his invisible item, and his imaginary return, and left. The door closed behind him, and the store became quiet again, but the silence felt heavy. I smiled at the next customer like nothing had happened, but inside, I felt wrung out. When I finally got a minute, I stepped into the back room, grabbed a cup of water, and drank it like I had just finished running a marathon. My hands were shaking a little, not because I was scared exactly, but because it takes real effort to stay calm when someone is determined to be unreasonable. That is the part people don't see. They think customer service is easy because it doesn't look physical. You're not carrying heavy boxes all day. You're not in a dramatic office meeting. You're not doing surgery or flying a plane. But emotional control is its own kind of labor. Smiling when someone is rude is work. Keeping your voice steady when someone is unfair is work. Letting a strange comment slide off you instead of taking it personally is work. And doing that over and over again for hours with different faces and different moods is exhausting in a way that doesn't show up on your body until later, when you finally sit down and realize how tired you are. I checked my phone while I was in the back, and there was a voice note from my mom. I pressed play, and her voice came through warm and familiar, soft in a way the whole day had not been. She said, "Beta, kom thik chal raha hai? Zyada tension mat lena. Kana ka lena." Just simple words. Asking if work was okay. Telling me not to take too much stress. Reminding me to eat. And suddenly, standing in that little back room in a foreign country, I felt understood in a way I hadn't all day. Because that is the strange thing about being far from home. Sometimes the hardest part is not the rude customer or the long shift or the awkward mistakes. It is the fact that nobody around you really knows how heavy your day feels. You keep functioning. You keep smiling. You keep answering, "I'm good," because that's what adults do. But then one familiar voice cuts through all of it, and you remember that somewhere someone still hears your tiredness even when you never say it out loud. I took a breath, put my phone away, straightened up, and went back to the floor. The shift kept going. More customers came. More orders, more questions, more little moments of confusion. Time moved in that slow retail way, where every hour feels both endless and invisible. Then later, near the part of the day when your feet start complaining louder than your thoughts, an older woman came to my counter. Her name, I would learn from the receipt, was Mrs. Rivera. She had kind eyes, gentle energy, and the sort of face that makes you feel safe for no logical reason. She looked at me for a second longer than customers usually do and said, "Hey, honey, you look stressed. You okay?" And I don't know why that hit me so hard, but it did. Maybe because nobody asks that during a shift. People ask where the restroom is. They ask what time you close. They ask whether you can apply a discount from another century, but they do not usually ask if you are okay. For a second, I almost forgot how to answer. Then I smiled a smaller, more honest smile and said, "Yeah, just a long day." She nodded like she understood without needing details. Then she said, "You're doing great. Don't let the loud ones ruin your spirit." That sentence landed softly, but it stayed. It felt like someone had placed a warm blanket over a day that had been too sharp around the edges. I helped her with her order, and the whole interaction lasted maybe 2 minutes, but it changed the emotional weather inside me. Before leaving, she left a small tip and a tiny note that simply said, "Thank you." That was it. 2 words. Nothing dramatic. Nothing cinematic. But after hours of being treated like a machine with a smile, those words felt human. They reminded me that not everyone walks into a store carrying entitlement. Some people carry kindness. Some people notice more than they say. Some people quietly repair the damage done by louder people who never think about the effect they leave behind. By the time my shift ended, my feet hurt, my brain felt overused, and I had the kind of tiredness that settles behind your eyes. I stepped outside into the evening air and just stood there for a second. The city still felt new. America still felt weird. It was a place where someone could try to return nothing with no receipt and no item, accuse your manager of discrimination over a coupon that expired years ago, and somehow that was not even the strangest part of the day. But it was also a place where one stranger could look at your face, recognize your exhaustion, and offer enough kindness to help you breathe properly again. That contrast stayed with me on the way home. America, I realized, has a very specific type of chaos. It can embarrass you, confuse you, test your patience, and make you question whether common sense is still alive. But then, just when you are emotionally ready to give up on people, it sends someone like Mrs. Rivera to remind you that decency still exists. And that night, when I finally got home and took off my shoes, I sat there thinking about the whole shift, the absurd refund request, the expired coupon from 2019, Chloe's warnings, Manager Kim's exhausted professionalism, my mother's voice note, and that gentle sentence from a kind customer that fixed something invisible inside me. That was the day I truly learned that in America, customer service is not just a job. It is a sport, a full contact, emotionally complicated, spiritually exhausting sport. And somehow, despite everything, I survived.